Hello everyone, photographer Ronix with yet another tutorial, and this tutorial is going to be basically a skin retouching tutorial, and it's going to be an in-depth tutorial whereby you are going to learn each and every step in Capture One and also in Photoshop later on in this tutorial. So if at all you want to learn each and everything about skin retouching, color grading, and how to maybe get the best out of your images in Photoshop and Capture One, so this is the tutorial you have to be logged onto or watching. So we want to learn about that in a bit. So let's kick in and we start doing the simple adjustments first of all in Capture One before we can go into Photoshop and learn about each and everything about skin retouching, color grading, whitening of the eyes, removing of blemishes, and finally exporting your images. So basically I'm done importing the image into my Capture One, and I'm using Capture One 21. So this is basically my interface of Capture One. You can see you can import your photos by just simply using the import option, and for exporting everything is shown right here. So simply we want to first of all color grade this image before we can run into Photoshop in order to save time in the future, maybe saving the time you may have used to color grade this image in Photoshop. Let's do that in Capture One. So usually Capture One is like Photoshop and it has various layers, and you work on those layers in order to achieve or retain the best out of your images. So we're going to come right here, and if at all you may be wondering why my Capture One looks like this, I simply came to a window and I came to workspace and I selected migration so that I had my options right on my right hand side. So just come and click on this plus icon to create a new layer. So we're going to name that skin tones 1. So before I do any adjustments, let's first of all color grade this image. So after I have created this new layer, we're going to come and select our brush, yeah, and we're going to start drawing a mask or selecting the area of the skin we want to, or mask out this area of the skin. Remember, we want to do skin retouching, so just come and draw. So when you start drawing, or when you're drawing, you simply left click and hold down and start moving to draw a mask on the skin area or on the area of the skin. So just come and just draw the outline on the area of the skin like that. So everywhere you have drawn a mask is going to indicate a red option. So you shouldn't mind if at all you want to erase the mask from a particular area, because I'm going to be sharing with you guys that tool in a bit. So let's just draw. Then you're just going to come right down here and leave that tiny gap right there and come and draw like that. So after we feel like we have drawn that, we're just going to increase on the size of the brush by using the bracket or the right bracket on the keyboard and just fill in the mask like that. So we are basically trying to fill in the mask we have outlined and just painting over the skin area, because when color grading you don't want to affect some other parts of the image. So just do that and you get done with everything in a bit. So I think we are done masking out the skin area, and after we have felt comfortable about that, we're just going to come right down here. So we're going to come all the way down to the color editor option. So drop down and select skin tone. So we have 3 options. So select skin tone and get your color picker tool. So we want to choose, so in order to zoom into your image, you can see we have various tones in this image. I hope you guys can see them. So we have some magentas right here. So the skin tones are not really balancing, so we want to create a uniformity in the skin tones. So come and select the area of the skin you want the rest of the image to look like. So I'm just going to select this particular area. So I'm just sampling. So when you sample, you're going to notice that this is going to be showing you guys where all the different areas or the color range of the image you have selected. So I'm just going to come and choose this particular area. So let me try to zoom in order to be really precise. So I'm just going to select that area, and after doing so I'm just going to zoom out by using Ctrl or Command minus and come all the way down to uniformity, and you can as well view your color range or by holding or selecting this. Then I'm going to come under uniformity and I'm going to move the hue towards the right hand side, and you can notice when you do so everything is going to start falling in place like that. So I'm just going to take it all the way up, and I'm also going to knock up my saturation in this image and also knock up my lightness like that. I'm going to now come to my hues, this top option for the amount, and you can see when I go towards the left it adds magentas in the image, and towards the right it adds greens into the image. So just want to add a little bit of greens, and I'm going to knock down my saturation like that, and I'm also going to pump up my lightness. So you can see where we are right now. You can see this was the image before and after. You have just unified the skin tones in this very image. So after doing so, we are going to now create a second adjustment layer, and we are going to also continue color grading. So come and click on the plus icon, and this time around we are going to double click and name it skin tones 2, and you're going to repeat the same process or procedure. So get the brush and just now paint over the skin like that. I know it is really looking like a repetitive process, but the results are going to be amazing when you get done with everything. So just come and paint over. And I forgot to tell you, like if at all you wanted to remove the effect from a particular area in your image, just come and select your eraser tool and you can just rub the effect from that particular area. So basically that is how this tool works. So just come and paint over the skin like that. So I'm trying to go into the blacks because I know that is not within the range of my skin tones. So I think that is fine. I'm going to come right back down and under color editor, get my color picker tool and still sample from the area of the skin like that. So I'm going to go with that particular area, or maybe we could go with a darker tone. So I'm just going to go with this area and come down to the uniformity, and I'm just going to continue knocking it up like that, and also come the saturation. And so when I take it all the way up, what happens to the image? So I'm just going in like for that kind of chocolate kind of skin tone, yeah, medium tone I should say, and I'm just going to knock up my hue like that, and I'm just going to reduce on the saturation like that. So I'm just going to reduce on the saturation like that, and I'm just going to add some little bit more of greens into the image. And after I feel like I'm done with that first step, I can now go to these adjustments and work on them. So first of all, I'm going to come to the levels and I'm just going to pull in my whites like that. So I'm basically adding contrast into this image, and I'm going to come to and add in a little bit of blacks like that. So you can see the image has already gotten that beautiful contrast. And I'm going to come to my dynamic range and I'm going to pull down my highlights and knock up my shadows like that. And I'm going to knock down my blacks too. And basically knock in my contrast and reduce on the saturation. So right now I'm done color grading this image, and I think it is ready to be retouched in Adobe Photoshop. So in order to export your image into Photoshop, I'm just going to get this pointer and I'm just going to right click right in the image. And now I'm going to come to edit with and select Adobe Photoshop 2020. That's the version I'm using, and I'm going to leave all these the way they are. This is a 16-bit image, and I'm going to come right here to edit variants so that my image is exported into Photoshop. And this is basically going to open up my Photoshop in just a few seconds with my image. So this is the image we have right now, and that is what we're going to be retouching in this very masterclass tutorial. So basically, we want first of all clean up this image. You know, it has its own imperfections, so we want to first of all remove the blemishes. And in order to remove blemishes, we're going to be using the spot healing brush tool. So depending on what you want to use for removing blemishes, you can use the spot healing brush tool, maybe the clone stamp tool, or whichever you want. So I'm just going to come and create a new blank layer and get my spot healing brush tool, and make sure sample all layers is selected because we want to sample from the background too, because it has the information of the image. So if at all your clone stamp tool if at all it is showing this tiny cross, I hope you can see it. If it is showing that cross, make sure you turn off your caps lock key and now zoom into the image. And when you're removing blemishes, make sure the spot healing brush tool is bigger than the blemish you want to eliminate or remove from the image. So let's just clean up this, and remember you have to take your time while cleaning up images, because every time you're cleaning up images, it is going to contribute to your overall retouched image. So make sure you take your time and you remove each and every tiny blemish. You know, for beauty portraits, most of the times people tend to zoom into and look for mistakes. I don't know. I also do so. So I think it is like a photographer problem. So I also zoom into the images to see how well they were retouched by different photographers. So I'm just trying to maybe confess that it's maybe every photographer's weakness. So just start and clean. I'm sorry, I just did a wrong pattern. So in order to undo a given step, just hit Ctrl or Command Z on the keyboard to undo a given step. So I'm just trying to clean up this image. So let's see what we have done so far. So this is the before after. You know, a clone stamp tool is really effective when you're trying to remove blemishes as a beginner, because you won't have to hold down the alternate key and sample from a clean area like when you're using the clone stamp tool and the healing brush tool. So this is going to automatically do the job for us, and Photoshop is just going to be helping us to sample and replace skin. So you're just going to have less work to do with the blemish removal in Photoshop before retouching. You know, every time you want to retouch an image, make sure you know where you have to start. If at all you're too tired, like I am at the time I'm doing this tutorial, make sure you make it a point to first of all clean up the image, because you may start rushing when you're removing blemishes last, and you may be really too tired to remove or clean up the images. So make sure you really do choose the priority depending on, anyway, it is all about the choice of your choice as a photographer. I know we are almost done cleaning up this very image, so I'm just removing these kind of stray hairs from the model's face. So I think we are done cleaning up this part of the model's face. You can see the before and after. So I'm just going to zoom out like that and look for, you have to keep on zooming in and out and look for the areas you have not yet worked on in your images, or to see if at all you made a mistake and you want to maybe undo or repeat the process all over again. So you have to have that in mind. So just clean up the image like this. So let's look for the area we want to clean up. So I'm just going to zoom in. I know most photographers, every time they are trying to do retouching onto their images, they tend to forget some specific parts. So make sure you don't be like those photographers. Make sure you leave no stone unturned when you're trying to do the cleanup or the removing of those tiny imperfections in your images. So I think that is really done. So you're done removing the blemishes from this very image. So right now what we want to do, you want to start retouching. Let's first of all clean up the hat like that. So we want to now start retouching. So let's see what we have done for the blemish removal. So that is the before after. You can see what we have just done with just the blemish removal, and I feel like the image is already amazing even if we stop right here. I'm kidding. So let's just merge these layers because we want to do skin retouching. So let's come right here and you're going to hit Shift Command E or Shift Control E on the keyboard to merge these layers, and you're going to learn about frequency separation, and this technique is used to divide the image so that we can work on the image when it is divided. We work on the colors alone and we also work on the textures alone in this image. So in order to divide the image, you want to divide this very image into two parts. Yeah, we just want to divide it into two parts. So we're just going to hit Ctrl or Command J twice. Or the other option for duplicating the background layer is simply dragging and dropping to this new layer twice like that, and we're going to name this low. Some people call it low frequency, so I'm going to name it low frequency or color, and you're going to name the top layer textures or high frequency like that. You know, the reason as why we are naming these is because even on our skin, the textures are usually on top. Like if at all I zoom into this image, you're going to notice that the textures seem to be like in front and the colors are just beneath the textures. That's why these layers are named like this. So after doing so, you're going to turn this off. Make sure you turn off this by clicking on the eye icon to deactivate it, and now select the color or frequency layer. So what we want to do on this layer, we just want to blur out or remove the textures from this layer to remain with only the colors or the skin tones. So you're going to come right to filter, you're going to come to blur and come to Gaussian blur, and when you select that, you're going to get this little dialog or this little window. So you have these options. You have the zoom out tool and the zoom in tool and the preview. So make sure your preview is on because you want to see every effect on this image. So make sure you now zoom out and look for the area that has more skin textures than the rest of the image, and for this case you're just going to go with this particular area. So we want to move this slider, so you have to move the slider as you're looking at the image right here in the preview and this side, until you can no longer see the skin details or the textures in the image. So you have to move this really carefully, and you don't want to overdo this. So make sure you remember, every texture you remove, you're going to be able to get it back in this layer. So it's like we are just storing the textures in a given store. So we are now going to use the radius of 10, because when I try to move this around, I cannot see any textures in the image, and that is the goal we are trying to aim at. So come and click OK. So your image is going to look blurry, and you shouldn't mind about that. Come and select your high frequency layer or texture layer and activate it. So we want to steal the textures that were hidden in. We are trying to now rob the textures from this low frequency layer. So we're going to come right to image, and we're going to come apply image. And first of all, we are going to select the layer where we are going to be stealing the textures from, that is the low frequency layer. And remember, we are stealing, meaning we are going to change the blend mode to subtract. Make sure the opacity is 100, and make sure your preview is on, because you want to see what you're doing right on this gray kind of layer. And the reason for having this gray kind of layer is because we want to get our textures on a 50% gray layer. Like when we tend to divide the colors in the RGB, in the RGB, we have 256 colors. So when we divide 256 by 2, we get 128. That's why we have this kind of layer. And when I try to zoom in, I hope you guys can see the textures or the outlines in the image, but we are lacking colors. We're going to come and select OK, or click on OK. Come to a blending mode and change it from normal to linear light. And when you do so, you're going to get back your image. So I want to put these two layers in a group. So the thing is, there should be a difference between the background and our frequency separation layer. So I want to put these two in a group by selecting both layers and hitting Command G or Control G on the keyboard. I'm going to name that frequency separation. So we want to prove that there is no difference between our background or the original image and the frequency separation group we have just created. So this is the before after. You can see there is no difference at all. So we're going to open the frequency separation group, and you're going to select the high frequency layer. We're going to come right down the adjustments, and we're going to create a black and white adjustment layer. And now we're going to darken it up like that, so that we can see the uneven skin tones. Remember, skin retouching is more of blending or evening out the skin tones in an image. That is why we have created this black and white layer, to guide us or show us where the skin tones are not really transitioning well, or where we have imperfect skin tones in the image. So we're going to come and select the low frequency layer, because that is going to contain our skin tones, and that is what we are aiming in for, or aiming at. We are going to now select our mixer brush tool. So under brushes, just right click and look for your mixer brush tool. This is not your normal brush, it is a mixer brush tool. I hope you guys are understanding what I'm meaning. So this is a mixer brush tool. So come right down here and make sure it is clean. So drop down and make sure it is clean. So we have two options right here. So you have to select the second option, because we want Photoshop to clean the brush for us automatically every time we are trying to blend or move the brush from one location to another. We don't want the brush to copy tones from a given area to another. Make sure the wetness is between 7 and 9, but for this case we're going to be using a wetness of 9. And you have to be careful with the wetness, because it is going to determine the amount of textures you're going to be remaining with in your images. Then the load we are going to be using is 75%, the mix 90%, and the flow 100%. So make sure sample all layers is not checked or selected, because you only want to work on this layer and you don't want to sample from the textures, because when you sample from the textures it is going to be applying the rough or doubling the texture effect on this image, which we don't want. So make sure sample all layers is not checked or selected, and select your low frequency or color layer. So just want to blend the skin tones in the image. So make sure you don't over zoom in, have a reasonable zoom, and now start blending. And when you're blending, make sure you blend the midtones alone, the highlights alone, and the shadows alone. Make sure you don't move your brush from the shadows or to the highlights. So make sure you remain within the borders of the areas you're just trying to blend or mix on the image. So let's first turn this off, and you see our progress with just 3 strokes of a brush. So this was the before, after, before, after. I hope you guys are loving the results already. So let's turn this back on and we continue blending. So in order to reduce or increase on the size of your mixer brush tool, you can use the brackets as usual on the keyboard. So the left bracket is going to reduce on the size of the mixer brush tool, and the right bracket is going to increase on the size of the mixer brush tool. So you can see the way I'm blending. I have some kind of midtones right here. I'm just going to blend them alone, and I have a highlight right here, and I'm just going. So where these two are transitioning, you can just come and harmonize them like that. So make sure you don't overmix a particular area for a long time, because it is going to end up doubling the wetness effect on that particular area, and you're going to start losing out on the textures on that area. So you can see the before and after so far. So come and turn this back on, and now just continue blending. Nice and easy. I know some photographers only use, or some retouchers only use the mixer brush tool, but I for one, I prefer to combine or use the mixer brush tool in conjunction, or in conjunction maybe I should say, with another very step that I'm going to be sharing with you guys when we are almost getting done with using or blending the skin tones using the mixer brush tool option. So if at all you feel some area is too dark and you can no longer see the details or the tones quite well, come and double click on these two boxes and you can now brighten up, yeah, like that. So come and now continue, and before you can continue, select your low frequency layer and just continue blending the skin tones. Nice and easy, and it is really nice and effective, I should say. So just come and continue just blending, and now reduce and now blend this side of the lip like that. I hope you guys are really loving this tutorial, because and if at all you're watching and haven't subscribed to this channel, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because I always keep on dropping content that is going to transform and help your photography career to be improved. So I'm going to double click right here and I'm going to darken a little bit, and come and select our low frequency layer and just continue harmonizing the skin tones in this very image. Nice and easy, and it is really worth it at the end of the day. So you have to take your time when you're retouching. I prefer not to rush or forward my tutorials, because I want you guys to be part of the process and be part of the transformation. I don't want you guys to come back and see like I did apply like magic to the image when you are not watching, or when I was forwarding things. That's why I tend not to forward anything when I'm doing my tutorials. So I know some people give me comments like I be wasting time or I talk a lot, but anyway, we have so many ungrateful people out there, and I just brush it off. So let's see what we have done for the mixer brush tool. So you can as well work without the use of the black and white layer if at all you do trust your site. So let's just blend this particular area. So this was the before after. So we're going to select the black and white layer and hit delete to get rid of it. And now this is where I share with you guys the very second method that you can use to even out the skin tones even more, because you may have missed out on some areas when you're using the mixer brush tool. So come and select your color all of frequency layer, because we are still working with the skin tones even in this second method. Select your lasso tool. So this is the lasso tool. We're going to be using a feathering of 25 pixels, and anti-alias is selected, but make sure you're still on your low frequency or color layer. And now zoom into the image like that. And now we're just going to draw a shape like on the skin area like that. So make sure you don't select maybe the hair or anything like that. So just draw a shape, and you can as well resist from selecting the eyebrows, because it is a skin retouching, not an eyebrow retouching tutorial. Come right to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. And after you have done so, make sure you zoom out until you see that your image is the way someone is going to be looking at it when you post it maybe on social media. So when you do so, you're going to get back to your original radius, and just don't move backwards, just move this slider forwards until you feel like it is giving you a nice skin texture on your image. So I think I'm just going to move this. So I think at around 28 I have a nice or uniform skin texture on my image, and I'm just going to click OK, and I'm just going to apply the effect onto the rest of the image. You can see the way I'm drawing these shapes is the way light is falling on a particular area. So right click and click on Gaussian blur like that. So if at all you feel like the effect is too much for your liking, you can simply fade or reduce on that effect by hitting Shift Command F or Shift Control F on the keyboard to reduce on the effect by turning down the opacity. So I'm just going to leave it at that for purposes of this tutorial, and I'm just going to draw another shape like that. Right click, Gaussian blur. So you're basically trying to fine-tune the areas we may have missed out when we are using our mixer brush tool, and just fine-tuning those areas even more to get the best out of our retouching of this very image. You can see, guys, you can see the way I'm drawing these shapes. I'm just not drawing it like a whole pattern on a given area. I'm just drawing shapes. So you have to be good at geometry, I should say. But you don't need all that, because this is photography and I don't want it to look like a math class. So I'm just going to apply the effect onto the rest of the portrait. So I'm just going to come to the nose area. So right click and click on Gaussian blur. So I think we are done with fine tuning. So I could as well come right here and just apply the effect on that particular area. So after I feel like this is okay and we have done the best, I should say. I know you can as well come and apply the effect on these other areas, but I don't feel like it is really necessary, because we don't want over smoothen these particular parts. And since we use the mixer brush tool, I feel like it really did a pretty nice job and clean job. So let's see the before and after for our skin retouching. So this was the image before, after. I hope you guys are really loving the results from our skin retouching process. So what I would love to do, I would love to maybe add a little bit of shape or dimension to this image, and we're going to be learning about the dodging and burning technique in Photoshop to bring back shape or dimension to the image. Remember, when you're doing skin retouch, most of the times we tend to flatten the images, so I would love to bring back that shape or dimension to the image. So we're going to come right down here, come to curves, and you're going to first of all make a midpoint and brighten like that. I hope you guys are seeing what I'm doing. So make a midpoint and drag it up until the image looks really overexposed, and make sure the mask is selected and click Ctrl or Command I on the keyboard to hide that effect. So we're going to name that dodge. Remember, when you're dodging, we'll be brightening parts of the image, and when we are burning, we'll be darkening parts of the image. So we're going to come and create a second one and do the opposite. So make a midpoint and now darken like that until the image starts to look underexposed. Make sure the mask is selected and hit Ctrl or Command I on the keyboard to hide that effect. Select both layers and hit Ctrl or Command G on the keyboard to put them in a group. So we're going to name that dodge and burn like that. So after doing so, we are going to open our dodge and burn group and now select our dodge layer like this, and come and get right now we're going to be getting a normal brush tool, opacity 100, flow 100, and you can see like my tool is really looking okay. And if at all your brush is looking weird, make sure you turn off your caps key. So we're going to make sure we have white on the foreground or on top, because we want to reveal what we hid on the black mask. Remember, white reveals and black hides. So if at all you don't have black and white, just click on these two boxes, you'll have black and white. So make sure you have white on top to set your brush as white, and now draw a line on the area you have where you have a highlight. So we're just going to draw lines. So this dodge and burn technique is going to be more of dodging and burning by simply drawing lines on the highlights and the shadows. So just going to come and draw a line. We have a highlight right there, then we have a highlight, we have a highlight right there, and I should say we have a tiny highlight, and we have a highlight right here. So we are simply drawing lines on the areas we feel should have had highlights on the image. Then you're going to do the same for the sorry, I forgot to name this burn. So we're going to name do this for the burn, and remember, when we are burning, we burn the shadows. So I'm just going to draw lines on the shadow areas, or the areas I feel should have shadows in this particular image. So right there. And now I feel like there is some kind of shadow right here and a shadow right there. So I think that is all for the burn. So make sure this black mask is selected. Come to window and come to properties. So we have density and feather. So our density is at 100 and feather is at 0. So you want to blend this line into the shadows of the image. So in order to do that, we're going to move the feather option. So you have to move while stopping or having stops. And when you reach a certain point, you'll notice that it is going to start blending into the skin of our model like that. So just move it like that until it has gotten to be all look like the original tones in the image. And you're going to also come to our dodge and double click right there to select the mask, and also move it until these dodge lines start getting embedded into the skin tones of the model like that. So I know it may be affecting the colors, yeah, and come and you can see the before and after for the dodge and the before and after for our burn. So if at all it is affecting the colors in the image, come and change the blending mode from normal to luminosity, and you're going to do the same for our burn, and you're going to come and select luminosity so that it doesn't affect the colors in the image. And if at all you feel like that is okay for you, you can simply close this, and you can as well reduce on the opacity if at all you feel it is too much or you did too much. And yeah, I think that is looking fine. So right now we would love to do some little bit of eye and teeth whitening for this very model. So in order to do that, we're going to create a stamp visible layer for all we have done for our image by hitting Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard, or Shift Alternate Command E on the keyboard to create a stamp visible layer. And as usual, we need a backup for our stamp visible layer. We're just going to hit Ctrl or Command J, and we are going to come to filter and come to camera raw filter. So under camera raw filter, you can still continue playing around with these tones like I'm going to do. I'm going to come right to up my normal adjustments, and I'm just going to knock down the temperatures of this image a little bit to around negative. I'm going to go with -3 to kind of cool down the image. And now get my zoom tool and zoom into the eyes. Hold down the space bar to move like that, and have a precise zoom tool to the eyes, and get the adjustment brush tool. So you can simply press K when you're in camera raw, and you get the adjustment brush tool selected. And now come and remember, we have color in the eyes or the white area of the eye. So since we have those yellow colors, we have to go with the opposite of yellow and move the slider towards the left hand side. So we're going to go with 26 and move the tint to around 65. And remember, we want to brighten or have a popping kind of feel to the eyes. We're going to move the highlights to around 3 and the whites to around 3. And since we have color in the white area of the eyes, we're going to leave the rest at 0 and go down to saturation, and we're going to knock down the saturation to around -65. And after doing so, we are going to be set, and we're going to start painting over the white area of the eye to whiten it up. So you can as well enhance this beautiful catch light in the model's eyes like that. So I think that is really looking okay to me. So I'm just going to zoom into the eyes, the teeth, sorry, and get my zoom tool. So I'm simply holding down Ctrl plus to zoom into, and using a space bar to move. So I'm just now trying to do the teeth whitening of this model like that. So you can see we had some color on the teeth, so I'm basically trying to whiten them. So if at all I feel like that is enough like that, and if at all you feel like your eyes are looking, or the eyes and teeth are looking kind of blue, you can come and reduce on the temperatures like that. So right now we're going to come back to the these options, or the edit option in camera raw, and we're going to go all the way down to the calibration option, and we're going to add some kind of magentas into this image, just around -3. And let's come to the green primary, and we're going to knock it to around 7. Well, let's go with 4. I think the image now looks beautiful and amazing to me. And if at all I feel like I'm comfortable with this all, and I'm just going to come and hit OK. So I want to show you guys the before and after for our camera raw. So that is the before, after, before, after. So I'd love to add some kind of black. So I'm going to come to selective color, and I'm going to come to the blacks, and I'm just going to intensify on the blacks to around 2. So I think that is okay and it looks amazing to me. So let's see the overall for our image, or skin retouching and color grading everything. So basically this is more of the skin retouching part. So this was when you hold down the alternate key and hit on this eye icon, you can see the before and after, before, after, before, after. So basically this is how to color grade in Capture One and do skin retouching in Photoshop, and this has been a full tutorial about all that. And if at all you loved this tutorial, don't forget to like this video and don't forget to drop a comment in the comment section, and above all that, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if at all you have just landed on this video for the very first time. I'm Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet another tutorial or some behind the scenes in the near time or in the near future to come.